Hello all, this is Wayne Chambers with 36 Chambers Financial. Today what I want to talk about is debt and people's lack of understanding how deeply debt affects your household. First of all, we're going to focus on negative debt because there is a such thing as positive debt, but we're not going to go that deep into debt today. First thing I want to say about debt is it's not a good thing to be in debt for all the wrong reasons. Being in debt because you're buying a house or maybe financing a car, those can be considered positive debt because it helps to sustain you and allows you to better your household. Now, when we go into things talking about credit card debt, personal loans, things that are trivial to be in debt about, that's when it becomes negative. Debt is run in America in the fact that America has become a debtor's society. That means the majority of the millions of people that occupy the United States of America are in debt in some way, form, or fashion. This comes from a poor financial management of one's income and financials of your household. So as we talk about this, take into account that in the end it is our responsibility to handle our financial situations. Now when we come to talk about debt, there is branches that go off from debt. You could talk about credit, which has a lot to do with debt. You could talk about loans. You could talk about defaults, things of that nature. But debt comes down to hurting you in the fact that this debt can actually be passed on after you die. That's when a lot of people say you're taxed even after you die. This is a debt that can happen after you've passed away. So this is something you negative that you can pass on to your next generation, to your children, to your children's children. And this is something that we don't want to do. Now, debt comes in the form of taking out loans, credit cards, or even putting which I absolutely detest, but doing a title loan with your car. Those are all forms of debt. What we want to do is get out of debt in a fashion that is best for our household. Now understand that some forms of debt are in our society necessary to begin with. But when you're in your 40s and 50s and on up there in your years, and you're looking forward to retiring, most people now can't because they are so far in debt. Now, debt at first, buying a car, we'll start there. Most people buy a car to get back and forth and work. Most people aren't able to buy a house when they first begin. So we can't get that in the beginning without going into debt. So when you buy a car, the first time you buy a car, that's most people's first debt, is buying a car. Most people can buy a car when they turn 18. A lot of places won't give you credit cards till you're 21. So for most people, that first debt is a car. That is not bad debt because you need that to get back and forth to work. Work, of course, earns you the income to pay off the debt that you're incurring, as well as move on to fulfilling your needs and wants in life. Now, when we talk about debt, we want to understand that in America, they are trying to keep you in debt. That is how these businesses run, by putting you in debt. The worst thing you can do from their standpoint, from most banking institutions and companies of that nature, is actually pay off or pay outright whatever you're purchasing. Listen to how that sounds. They want you to be in debt. They are banking on that you will be in debt to them. They do their books on how much you are in debt to them. So the first strings that we need to grab a hold of, the first horse that we need to get under control, is our home debt, is our personal debt, family debt. Your household income should not be going totally or even 50% toward things that you're in debt for. You want to get to the point where you don't owe anybody anything. Your day-to-day bills, power, heat, and things like that should be the only thing you're paying for. That's not being in debt. Those are everyday bills. You're not in debt with those bills. Our society has got to the point where being in debt is the norm. And then we wonder why these companies are laying people off. Well, let's see how that trickles down a little bit. We're going to use the trickle down economics here. Let's see how that trickles down. If you get in debt to someone, say a bank, that bank puts on their books that you are paying them so much a month. Therefore, in their future forecast, they put that down as revenue. They haven't gotten it yet, but they put it down as revenue. So if you lose your job and you default on that, they have to count that as a loss of revenue that they're not getting. That's when they try to take you to court. That's when they try to repossess your car and auction it off and still try to get you to pay the balance. So you're no longer paying the bank. The bank is no longer able to lend to people, even big companies, because the revenue that they thought they had coming in is no longer there. So they can now no longer lend to these companies. These companies can no longer get the money they need to expand and develop. So to get the money they need to expand and develop, what they do is fire their employees. That is a big circle. And it all starts with debt. It all starts with paying bills on time and handling your financial situation. Now, let's take a look at that if you weren't in debt to begin with. So now the bank has to depend on the money that they actually have, which gives truer numbers for their financial sheets. These are not forecasts. These are not what ifs. These are true numbers because no one owes them any money. So now what they have is exactly what they have. So when another company tries to lend them money, or they try to lend another company money, they have to give real numbers. So these companies get real numbers instead of forecasts, which means they expand based on those numbers, which means they hire more people or fire more people, depending on business. But it starts with the consumer, which is you and me, because by not being in debt, we're able to buy more product. We're able to buy more of what these companies offer. We're able to demand higher quality for what we're getting. Because we go in, we buy it, and we're done. That's their revenue. So now they're at the point where they have real numbers. Our stocks are real numbers and not based on people's debt, not based on money that they haven't received, but they're counting on. So there are, of course, advantages to having credit cards and whatnot and being in what would be considered positive debt. But as I said, we're focusing on negative debt. And negative debt is which is fueling the downturn in our economy. It's simple. The less debt you have, the more you're able to maintain your household in a financial crisis which would include a sick relative, yourself being sick, or even the loss of a job. Because when you're in debt and one of those happens, you get further in debt. When you get further in debt, when that crisis is over, it takes you 4 or 5 times longer to get out of debt than what got you in debt. But if you're not in debt going into that begin with, your recovery becomes quicker and it becomes more stable. So when we talk about debt, we want to understand that getting control of debt and getting control of our financial situations is one and the same. I hope that's cleared up and helped with debt a little bit. Once again, my name is Wayne Chambers. I'm with 36 Chambers Financial. We can be reached anytime, toll free, 1-844-463-6151. Once again, that number is 1-844-463-6151. Or visit our website at www.36chambers.com. Thank you.